Emily's smile didn't reach her eyes when I said, "I'll be leaving at the end of the month." It was the kind of smile people wear when they think they've won. "Well," she drawled, loud enough for the cubicles around us to hear, "congratulations! The company finally gets to stop bleeding money." She flicked her gaze over my desk like it was contaminated. "No more overtime, no more creative timesheets." Tom, leaning against the doorway like he owned the air, chuckled. "It's about discipline," he added. "We're cutting labor costs. People who milk the clock ruin departments." I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I didn't give them the satisfaction of watching my face crack. I just looked at Emily, steady, quiet, unreadable, until her smirk faltered for half a second. Then I glanced at the time on my monitor. 2:17 p.m. In a week, that same office would be calling my phone like it was a life support machine. And they'd finally learn what they'd actually cut. Before we go further, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. I always love seeing how far this story travels, and I read more of your comments than you think. My name is Lily Johnson. I was 59, and I'd been in that company long enough to watch the carpet get replaced twice and the efficient new system get rolled out and abandoned at least 5 times. I wasn't a loud person. I wasn't a dramatic person. I was the one people quietly relied on when a deadline was bleeding and nobody wanted to admit they were lost. Our firm didn't manufacture anything. We sold precision, administrative support for executives who had money, stress, and no patience for mistakes. Most of what I touched lived in the tax world. Filings, declarations, compliance documents, correspondence that had to be correct the first time because the second time cost penalties. I managed 45 clients, many of them for years. Some had called me through hospital stays, divorces, business expansions, and audits. They weren't just names on a spreadsheet. They were long relationships held together by trust. And lately, the workload had become impossible to finish inside a normal day. I had a part-timer, but it wasn't enough. Still, I refused to show strain. The moment you look tired in a place like that, people start circling you like you're already gone. So I kept my shoulders squared, my voice even, and my work immaculate, while someone upstairs decided my loyalty was too expensive. Tom hadn't always been like that. For years, he was just another manager, pleasant enough, quick to nod, careful with his words. Then, 3 months ago, he got promoted to head of the tax department, and it was like someone handed him a new personality along with the title. Suddenly, every conversation with him felt like being corrected in public. If I asked a clarifying question, he'd sigh and say, "Check the manual." If I proposed a safer way to handle a client's filing, he'd wave it off as overthinking. If I finished something early, he found a reason to imply I'd done it wrong. Emily, his assistant, learned the rhythm quickly. She didn't just echo him, she amplified him. She'd stroll past my desk and comment on my screen like she was inspecting a junior's work. "You're still on that?" she'd ask, dragging out the words. "No wonder you're always clocking overtime." Then she'd laugh like it was a harmless joke, even when it wasn't. They called me slow. They called me old-fashioned. They called my hours waste. But the truth was uglier. They kept feeding me their deadlines. The worst day was when Tom dropped a thick stack of client folders onto my desk at 4:45, almost casually, like he was delivering mail. "A month's worth," he said. "File them by month end." I stared at the pile and felt my mouth go dry. Some of those accounts had hard deadlines inside 2 weeks. A few had penalties attached if anything was late. "Wait," I said carefully, flipping open the top folder. "These all have deadlines this month." Tom was already shutting down his computer. "I'm heading out," he replied, as if I'd asked about the weather. "Take care of it." Emily snorted on her way past.
Try not to rack up 80 hours again. When I opened the folders properly, my stomach tightened. Several weren't even Tom's. They were Emily's, her clients, her drafts, her unfinished declarations, stuff that had somehow migrated onto my desk, as if gravity pulled responsibility toward whoever wouldn't refuse it. And that's when the pattern finally made sense. They weren't just annoyed by me. They were trying to exhaust me into quitting, because the longer I stayed, the more obvious it became to everyone in that department who actually knew the work. People always ask the same question when they hear stories like this. Why didn't you just report them? Why didn't you refuse? Why didn't you leave sooner? But that's the thing about being the reliable one.
You don't wake up one morning and decide to become a dumping ground. It happens slowly. One, can you help me just this once, at a time, until saying no feels like you're breaking something you spent decades building. I'd been with that company since graduation. 37 years of routines, relationships, and muscle memory. I knew which clients panicked at the word audit. I knew who needed reassurance, who needed blunt honesty, who needed their hand held through every form. And I was proud of that. Pride can be a trap, because when someone like Tom tries to humiliate you, there's a voice inside that says, don't react. Don't give him the satisfaction. Just outwork it. So I did what I'd always done. I solved problems. I stayed late. I cleaned up messes that weren't mine, because the messes didn't belong to me. They belonged to the clients, and the clients deserved better than office politics. Every time I almost snapped, I pictured a small business owner losing sleep over a deadline, and I swallowed my anger like medicine. Tom and Emily mistook my discipline for weakness. They thought my silence meant I didn't have options. They were wrong. The summons came mid-afternoon. "President wants to see you," the receptionist said, eyes careful, like she already knew the outcome. We'd recently had a leadership change. The former president fell ill, and his son stepped in. New suit, new energy, and not nearly enough understanding of how the company actually stayed alive. When I walked into the office, Tom and Emily were already there. They sat side by side, composed, almost cheerful. Emily's mouth twitched like she was holding back a laugh. Tom's posture was relaxed in a way that made my skin prickle, as if my meeting had been scheduled for his convenience. The president didn't waste time. "Lily," he said, tapping a folder, "we need you to resign by the end of the month." My mind went briefly blank. Resign? Why? Tom answered for him. "Overtime fraud," he said smoothly. "Everyone else manages their workload. Lily logged over 80 hours. Emily tilted her head. "It drags the whole department down. It looks dishonest." I looked at the folder and realized what they'd done. They'd turned the hours I spent finishing their abandoned work into proof that I was incompetent, or worse, greedy. I could have defended myself by revealing exactly who dropped those files on my desk. I could have described the deadlines, the names, the timestamps. But I knew how it would sound to someone who didn't know us. Excuses. An older employee refusing to adapt. Someone who can't keep up. The president exhaled like the decision pained him. "There's no direct evidence of fraud," he said, "but we can't keep someone who works at this pace." And just like that, the company I'd held together for decades decided I was the problem. Outside the president's office, Emily caught up to me with a sugary voice that didn't match her eyes. "Honestly," she said, "thanks for making it easy. The company needs to stop paying for inefficiency." Tom added, almost conversationally, "We're tightening labor costs. People who exploit overtime don't belong here." I answered the same way I'd answered all month. With silence. Not because I didn't have words, because words were wasted on people who only listened for weakness. That night, at home, I opened my laptop and made a list. Not of revenge, of responsibilities. 45 clients, active filings, pending declarations, deadlines stacked like dominoes, contact history, preferences, ongoing issues, things a manual would never capture. I created handover notes for every account, what was due, what was risky, what needed a human touch. I drafted short letters for the clients I couldn't meet in person. I kept the tone polite, professional, clean. I will be leaving the company at the end of the month. Going forward, your new point of contact will be... But I added something else, quietly, the way you add a seal to an envelope. I made sure each client had my direct email. Not because I planned to take them, because I'd spent decades earning their trust, and I refused to let Tom's ego turn their tax work into collateral damage. During my final week, I scheduled what I could. Quick coffees, short calls, a few meetings squeezed between filings. Some clients shook my hand too tightly. Some went silent in a way that meant they were thinking. Tom and Emily watched me pack up as if they were supervising an eviction. Emily even smirked. "Don't forget your pension paperwork," she said. I nodded once, like I hadn't heard the insult underneath it, and then I walked out. For exactly 7 days, my phone stayed quiet. I almost believed the company had replaced me smoothly, found another pair of hands, another set of eyes, another person willing to absorb chaos without complaint. Then, on the 8th day, it started. One call from the office. I ignored it. A second. A third. By the time the 4th came through, the screen showed the main line and Tom's personal number back to back, like they'd decided silence was no longer an option for me. I answered on the 5th ring. The new president didn't even introduce himself. "Who exactly are you?" he demanded, sharp and suspicious like I'd called him. I let out a short laugh, one that surprised even me. "I'm an unemployed woman," I said calmly. "The one you told to resign." There was a pause, and then the sound of a breath dragged through teeth. "Listen," he said, voice suddenly controlled. "We have a problem." He didn't call it panic, but it lived between every word. Since my departure, clients were contacting the company, 49 calls in a single morning, according to him, demanding to stop transactions, pause services, or review the relationship. Some weren't even my clients. They were companies the firm had been courting, prospects who'd heard something and decided they didn't like the direction. "They're asking for you," the president said. And for the first time, his voice cracked with irritation that wasn't aimed at me. "They're saying they won't proceed without your oversight." I didn't tell him what I suspected. Clients don't need a firm like ours to file taxes. They can hire accountants who charge less. They can download templates and follow checklists. They stayed because I didn't treat their finances like paperwork. I treated them like strategy. Like a living organism that could be protected, improved, optimized. When I left, the reason they tolerated our higher fees left with me. The president's tone turned urgent. "Come in," he said. "Now. We need you to explain what's happening." So, I drove back to the building I'd sworn I wouldn't step into again. In the lobby, Tom and Emily were waiting. Tom's face was drawn tight, eyes bloodshot, the smugness erased like it had never existed. Emily looked smaller somehow, hair hastily tied back, makeup failing to hide the dark circles beneath her eyes. As soon as they saw me, Emily snapped, "What did you do?" Tom didn't bother with fake politeness. "We've been flooded with cancellations," he hissed. "Not just your accounts. Prospects, too. Tell me you didn't poison them against us." I tilted my head. "Poison?" I repeated, almost amused. The truth was simpler than their paranoia. A company built on relationships collapses the moment it insults the person holding those relationships together. They didn't walk with me to the elevator. Tom marched, like escorting a suspect. Emily stayed half a step behind him, shooting daggers at my back, as if anger alone could rewind the last week. On the way up, Tom kept talking, fast, clipped, defensive. "They're saying you promised them something," he insisted. "They're claiming you told them we were changing terms, that we'd stop supporting their filings. Did you threaten them?" I watched the floor numbers rise and said nothing. Emily finally burst. "You're doing this because you can't stand being told the truth. You're mad you got caught stealing overtime." I turned my head slightly. "If I stole," I said, voice even, "you would have fired me with evidence, not a suggestion." Her mouth opened, then shut. The doors slid open. The president's office was at the end of the corridor, and I could hear raised voices even before we reached it. Phones ringing, staff moving too quickly, that brittle tension you only hear in places that are losing control. Tom shoved the door open without knocking. "President," he announced, like he was delivering me as proof. "I brought her." The president looked up sharply. The irritation in his face was obvious, exhaustion layered underneath it. He gestured toward the chair across from him. "Sit," he said to me, then immediately snapped at Tom and Emily. "And you two, stop glaring. This is already bad enough." Tom didn't listen. He leaned forward, almost shaking with restrained rage. "She did something," he said. "She turned them against us." I sat down slowly, folded my hands, and met the president's eyes. "What exactly are they saying?" I asked. The president's jaw tightened. "They're saying they're done," he replied. "And they're asking one question over and over. Why did you let Lily go?" The president rubbed his temples as if he could physically press the problem back into place. "I don't understand," he said. "They're saying they'll stop all work with us unless you handle their accounts. Lily, why?" Tom scoffed before I could answer. "Because she thinks she's irreplaceable," he snapped. "She's been running the department her own way for years. Slow, inefficient, outdated. Now she's trying to punish us." Emily nodded vigorously. "She wants leverage. That's all this is." I kept my voice steady. "Our clients don't need this company to file taxes," I said. "There are firms that charge less. There are software tools that do most of it automatically. They stayed because they trusted the person guiding them, not the logo on the letterhead." Tom's lip curled. "You're really going to sit here and call yourself the reason for everything?" "I'm going to tell you why they're leaving," I replied. "Because with me gone, what they're getting is checklists and indifference. I didn't just file forms. I found legal ways to reduce their burden, tailored to their situation. I caught problems before they became penalties." Tom slammed his palm on the arm of a chair. "That's not strategy. That's wasting time. We follow the manual. It's consistent. It's efficient." The president exhaled slowly, and I could see the conflict in his face. Not because he believed Tom, but because he'd made a decision without understanding the foundation it stood on. Then his phone buzzed. He checked the screen, froze, and stood up. "My father," he said quietly, almost to himself. He answered, listened for less than a minute, and his expression changed in real time, irritation draining into something sharper. When he hung up, the office felt colder. "My father spoke to 3 of the clients who halted transactions," he said. "They didn't call the company first. They called him." Tom straightened, alarm flickering across his face. Emily's smile slipped, just for a second. The president looked at me. "They told him they were willing to renegotiate only if you were treated properly. They said the tax department worked because of you, not because of Tom's discipline." Emily let out a small, disbelieving laugh. "That's ridiculous." The president didn't blink. "He also told me something else. Years ago, Lily was offered the department head position. She declined it." Tom's face twitched. He started. "And," the president continued, voice firmer now, "my father said that if she hadn't declined, she would have advanced far beyond where she is now. Which means I forced out someone more qualified than the person currently running the department."
Tom's complexion went gray. Emily stared at me, like she'd just realized she'd been throwing stones at a wall that could move. The president's gaze shifted to Tom. "Since Lily resigned, we've received complaints from within the department," he said. "Multiple. About work being dumped on subordinates, deadlines being assigned at the last minute, files disappearing and reappearing on other people's desks." Tom's jaw tightened. "People complain when you hold them accountable." "Accountable?" the president repeated. "Tom."
The reports say you pushed client declaration work onto others. Work you later criticized them for taking overtime to complete. Emily stepped forward quickly. "President, Tom is trying to improve efficiency. Lily is the one who—" The president raised a hand and cut her off. "And there's another matter," he said, turning a folder toward them. Accounting flagged recurring dining expenses filed under client relations. Same restaurant, same 2 names, same dates, often during office hours. Tom's throat bobbed. "That was mentorship," he forced out. "Emily needed—" "Mentorship doesn't require candlelit dinners billed to the company," the president said flatly. Emily's face drained of color. The president didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Tom," he said, "your employment is terminated, effective immediately. Emily, yours as well." The air went tight. Tom stood up so abruptly his chair scraped. "You can't do that," he spat. "I have a family." Emily's voice cracked. Please don't fire me. I'll apologize. I'll fix everything. I'll work overtime. I swear." I watched them plead. 2 people who had spent months calling me slow, calling me a thief, laughing as they loaded my desk, now begging for mercy from the system they thought they controlled. I spoke once, quietly. "Stop fighting," I said. "It's undignified." Tom turned on me with raw hatred. "Shut up," he hissed. "What would someone like you understand?" I met his eyes without flinching. "I understand consequences," I said. "And I understand karma." For the first time, Tom had nothing clever to say. The investigation didn't end with their termination. Once the president started pulling threads, the sweater unraveled fast. Expense reports that didn't match calendars, business trips that produced no client notes, sudden resignations that suddenly made sense. Within 2 weeks, the story had traveled beyond our walls. The tax industry is smaller than people think. Managers move between firms, accountants share warnings quietly, and reputations spread faster than resumes. Tom and Emily learned that the hard way. Tom's wife found out about the dinners and the hours that didn't add up. The divorce came quickly, and with it the kind of financial damage he used to lecture other people about: compensation claims, legal fees, and the slow, grinding cost of being exposed. Emily called me twice. The first time she spoke like she was still bargaining with reality. "I only wanted a better life," she said, voice shaking. "I didn't even like him." The second time, she was crying hard enough that her words broke. "Please, Lily, tell them I'm not a bad person." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult her. I just told the truth. You don't get to choose the consequences after you choose the actions. Tom tried once too, texting like nothing had happened, like I was still his safety net. He asked if I could talk to the president about reversing the decision. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. Some doors close softly, some slam. And some close because you finally stop holding them open for people who never respected you. The president did ask me to come back. He offered apologies, better terms, a title that suddenly fit my experience. He said the department needed me, the company needed me. But once you've been told you're disposable, you don't forget the sound of it. I thanked him and declined. Instead, I started helping a friend at a small tax office a few days a week. The work was calmer, the clients were grateful, and for the first time in years, I could breathe without feeling like someone was timing my lungs. One day, I may open my own place. Not a corporate machine, not a hierarchy built on fear. Just a clean desk, honest work, and clients treated like equals. Because money is stressful enough without ego attached to it. The funniest part is this. I didn't destroy Tom and Emily. They destroyed themselves. All I did was step out of the way and let their choices echo back to them. If you've ever been the person who carried a whole team quietly, hit like or share this. And tell me in the comments, when was the moment you realized your loyalty was being used against you? Subscribe if you want more stories about quiet power, hard boundaries, and the kind of wins you don't have to shout about.